The July meeting of the City of Lawrence Redevelopment Commission is hereby called to order. We have a quorum, and the first order of business would be the approval of minutes. Have the members had an opportunity to review the minutes? And are there any questions? If so, then if no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, you have to take roll call?
Nope,
Still?
we're good.
Good, thank you. Next order of business would be the approval of claims and purchase orders for payment. We have claims totaling $26,439.66. We don't have, on having reviewed them, I didn't feel if we had anything extraordinary. And I would entertain any questions from the members, from the commissioners. Hearing no questions, do I have a motion to approve the payments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item number, we don't have financial, do I have?
We got a late one.
I've asked Humphrey to come and at least give you a brief assurance that nothing has substantially changed. So Humphrey,
Thanks
please.
for being here, Humphrey.
By the way, Humphrey just got back went home, didn't you?
Yes, I did, and I do apologize. I'm fully aware you guys have not received financials for May, I believe. Last month, I was out of the country in June, so I don't believe you got the financials for May. Regardless, I did go through it. There was not any major changes as of May 30. But the June one before you does have significant change. Remember I believe sometime in April or March, we talked about the next set of the property taxes that we were expecting. So they did come. Those should be on the next page. Again, before we even go to the next page, as you all know by now, our operating funds are 406 and 407 on the first page, the redevelopment capital and the redevelopment bond proceeds for 22. So the bond proceeds pretty much stay the same. There's really no activity that takes place there. So really what we should be looking at is the first one, the 406, the redevelopment capital. And so if you flip on the next page, you can see under the month to date, we did get $329,194 for the property taxes, and that increased our total, our ending balance for Fund 406 to $1.3 million. As far as the expenses are concerned, it's just the usual professional services, as you can see. On the 431, we did have a total of $9,838.84.
It's good to see.
So the bottom line that I think everybody should feel good about, and that's also really important for you to understand as we start talking about next steps of the Trades District, is we have approximately, in round numbers, $3.1 million to work with at this point in time, including our bond proceeds. That
Right. So, yep, and it's not the usual presentation that I give you, just because, again, I just got back and still catching up, and we'll get back to the normal schedule where I'll be sending you the normal finance reports and kind of show you the total at your disposal. But
I think all of you have been reading the papers. Another thing that has Humphrey and Tyler really busy right now, if you walk in there, there's 4 auditors that are dealing with the legal matters and the lawsuits and the financial records disclosures, and that's likely to go on another 2 months. So
right.
Just letting you know that there's a lot going on back there, so I appreciate you being here. Does anybody have any questions for Humphrey relative to these statements?
Under the professional services other, is that primarily the Garmong?
Yes,
expenses? Okay.
yes. And that's pretty much what you will see. Our expenses are usually just the professional services, which will predominantly be common.
Anything else for the group? Cheryl, you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Humphrey.
Mr. Zerner.
Good afternoon, everyone. What a great team. Pleasure to be with you. CSX Drainage Ditch Report. We have all the negotiations are complete with CSX. All the agreements are signed. The coordination is occurring right now between the contractor and CSX to get started. And they're anticipating they'll complete that project in 30 to 45 days. So I would think by the end of August, we'll be through with the drainage ditch. Going along with the the next item, I have asked HWC to prepare an extensive design scope and budget package so we all know what we need to anticipate biting off if we move forward with the trades district as the next step. I expect to have that delivered to you in August for your review, and HWC here to make that presentation. Obviously, that'll be a several $1 million commitment in some form or another, and we'll have to figure out how we're going to tackle that. But I think you'll appreciate how Joe and I met with them this week. We've asked for some pretty exhaustive amount of information. I think that the actual full development package of that information was 30-some pages. We've asked them to prepare it down to a 1 to 2 page summary, but we'll have the backup detail. So I expect to have that to you in August. On the EPA Brownfields grant status, I don't know if I sent the work plan to everybody or just Jerry. Did I?
Just me.
Just you? I think Jerry would share with you that was a pretty exhaustive work plan
Indeed it was.
that we've submitted to EPA.
Pages.
And the good news is that they've approved it. They've approved the work plan, and it got attached to our formal application for the grant, which was due yesterday, that Tyler and Humphrey filled in the financial details. And it was acknowledged as received by the EPA, and we expect the formal grant to be approved by September 30th. We still have approximately $89,000, most of which is petroleum-based investigation in our existing grant. And one of the problems I am having is EPA wants me to spend that money, but I have to have a project to spend it on. I have to have a piece of real estate that somebody needs to have investigated. The one that I picked out is the parcel F in the grounds that the new school corporation headquarters has gone in. Thought maybe I could use it there, but I have a chain of title issue there. Because the Army transferred it directly to FHRA, it doesn't qualify. So I'm still hopefully going to identify some place in the next 30 days where we could use that money for some form of investigation. And one thing I asked yesterday is of HWC, is it possible that they could identify the right-of-way within the trades district that we may need to have environmentals on and go ahead and use it up for that application. So it kind of frustrates me a little bit because I'm not public sector oriented. My father was in the military, and at the end of the year, they'd spend all this money that they didn't really need for stuff just to keep their budgets appropriated. That's really what EPA is asking me to do here. I'm a little bit frustrated with that, but nonetheless, it is what it is. So I'm working through that process to let you know. And you can stop me anytime if you have questions. EV charging station grant, we're probably 40% through the charging study at this point. I apologize that I couldn't be 2 places at once yesterday, and I got to attend every call and teams meeting up till yesterday, and Corey and Cheryl and Jerry represented us on that call, and they said they had a very good call with potential business stakeholders here in the community. But we had a really good call earlier prior to that one with Foamcraft and their potential development in the fort, and Envoy being on the call. But the last couple of weeks have primarily been trying to get the surveys and attention to surveys. And Corey, do you know what the current number of surveys respondents they've had? Wasn't it 140 or 50 at this point? Yeah, they've extended it I thought I saw today they extended it to the 27th. Pretty sure I saw an email they've extended it to the 27th. Or was the extension to the 20th? They extended it another week today, I saw from Aaron, whatever that end-up date is. So, but pretty close to the end of July, they'll be wrapping up the surveys. Now they're starting to investigate the costs and quantities and types of chargers, but one of the things I think is really important to say publicly with this commission is in the last 10 days, we've made it extremely clear that we don't believe it's the position of this commission and the purpose of this study. We don't want anybody to think that the RDC has an interest in getting in the charging business, owning and operating and maintaining charging stations. We believe our job is to facilitate and incentivize, at least to some form of heavily private with public portion in a partnership, or facilitating as incentives the ability for a private entity to get in and get started in the charging business in the right places where they ought to be in the city. But I don't think it's with all the things that this commission's focused on, it's our goal to be owning and operating and maintaining chargers. So if somebody wants, as a commissioner, wants to challenge me on that, but that's the position I'm taking on your behalf right now. If anybody thinks I'm wrong, please let me know. 20th. Thank you, Corey. The surveys to the public will close on the 20th. 4399 Shadeland. Councilor Sturwald continues to work with Joe Flora, who's been terrific on that. We did run into a deed issue that related to the legal description in the previous closing that we're working to correct at this moment. It appears to me that that's going to go away rather quickly. The one thing that we need is for Mr. Clifford as the president to sign the revised and corrected deed today. Do we need a motion to that to any reason? Would you like to tell them what you'd like to have?
Yeah, motion and approval would be great.
A motion and approval for Mr. Clifford as the president to sign the corrected deed, please.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. 10160 56th Street. You all authorized, based upon certain parameters, for us to offer that property for sale to the SMS Incorporated Group. The bottom line of the couple things that the public may want to know as a result of this meeting is that SMS will pay $130,000 for that property. They'll put $10,000 into escrow with Near North Title within the next 3 days of execution of the agreement. It's already been executed by the buyer. They have an inspection period of 30 days that runs simultaneous with the 60-day period for them to submit plans for the city to look at and the RDC to review and be sure it's what we want to accept on that site. If it's not, we have recourse to kill the sale. So with that, I would like approval for Mr. Clifford to sign the purchase and sale agreement as Mr. Sturwald has in his possession. Move that closing forward.
A motion for approval.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, unanimous.
Thank you. I spoke with Tim Oakes a moment ago right before the meeting. The ongoing Forever Mills Freegee dedicated parking spaces. The bank that has the mortgage has now released that from their mortgage and their security, and the new corrected deed and title is in front of Mike Webster at Freegee to sign, and I just texted Mike and asked him to please sign that so it can come off of my to-do list. So that's where we are with that one. Ready to Grant Pursuit. CERTA is the group of communities, and I can't tell you all of them that are involved, but central Indiana communities that include Fishers and Carmel and Lebanon and Westfield and Speedway and McCordsville and Lawrence. All those mayors are represented in a group called CERTA. They are the group, the area that is the grant or the region that we're participating for the new Ready 2 grant. Corey's been not only by my side, but helping leading that initiative on our behalf. We've been on Teams meetings virtually every week since we've seen you. We've been to South Bend to an IEDC meeting. The rules and regulations are not yet out, but the CERTA group has authorized the engagement of HWC Engineering, who was successful in helping 3 of the regions last round already receive their grants of up to $50 million. It appears that HWC is going to be engaged to represent this region. What our goal is to get involved and try to secure a significant portion of funding for the Trades District, and we'll keep you updated on that, but there's really nothing beyond that, unless, Corey, I missed something that needs to be said. Thank you. Racetrack, the good news on the racetrack is that they submitted their final civil engineering documents, and they are totally in line with what HWC and the city went back to racetrack and asked them to alter so we can do the road improvements that are depicted in the Trades District plan. And they have made those corrections in their site plan and have been fully cooperative. And I think Jerry, you and Corey indicated me, and maybe it was Cheryl, I don't know, that they were very active on the call yesterday and continue to show engagement in the city, so feel good about that.
Do we have an opening date?
My understanding right now is they're looking at September. I don't have a date. No,
That's right, and that's right,
racetrack first.
racetrack, and that's what, that Franklin Road issue, when I said it was September, that's racetrack. September. I got confused.
You had the right month.
Probably. I can't keep things straight.
IMPO, that's the Indiana Municipal Planning Organization. Corey and I had about a half a day with Rose Scoville, who is one of the most senior planners in the IMPO, and we exposed her to the Trades District project and all about Lawrence, and she's made a big commitment and started to open doors on behalf of Lawrence and is really excited about our project, and she's very influential. So that's probably one of the best things we've gotten done in the last 30 days is open that relationship up. And one of the things that I was not
Sorry, Dan, what's her name again, please?
Rose Scoville, Scovel, and quite interestingly, David Scoville, who handles our Brownfields grant, is her husband that works for BCA. I need to back up to the Brownfields grant for a minute. The EPA is putting a lot of pressure on us to be sure we have a clear, succinct, and open process for the selection of the grant administrator. That we just can't, under the new rules, engage BCA without a fair and open process for the next round. But we can't issue that RFP per the best practices guideline until after we're formally selected, which will be somewhere close to the end of September. So my guess is that when all the dust blows and settles and all the scoring's done and everybody, because they've been here for 2 or 3 decades, is that in that role, they should have a leg up. It could very well end up being BCA again, but we do have to have a fair and open process for that selection. And to that extent, there's a company that's one of the leaders, recognized leaders across the Midwest, not just Indiana, known as CHA. And I have a meeting scheduled with them next week to expose them to what we do here with Brownfields and our new grant and be sure that we have more than 1 or 2 people that may submit to keep the respect of the EPA in the process.
Dan, who prepares the RFP?
We prepare the RFP, but there is a best practices guideline that's pretty much the roadmap for what that has to include. I believe I mentioned to you last month, and this probably should have come off, but there's a lady that's really working aggressively to establish a new soccer training facility, or I'm sorry, ice hockey training facility in Lawrence. Her name is Michelle Farley, called Our Hockey House. She's trying to find a piece of real estate of 5 to 10 acres to do that. We've been in conversation with her. Don't know where that's really going to go from there. The MPO is engaged in a massive new transportation survey that includes the area of Lawrence. We're working through that with them. This morning, Corey and I were on about an hour call with the Corradino Group, who has been charged by the IMPO to look at the major traffic corridors and the developments that are going to impact those corridors. We spent a lot of time with them explaining the load right now upon Cellar Street and Pendleton Pike and the 465 interchange as it is already today, let alone after the Trades District and Racetrack and all those things start to fully unload, let alone the new Arbor Homes development and the Cordsville expansion and how that's all going to funnel through Lawrence. So part of that is to expose them to that Cellar Street intersection. So we had an hour phone call on that today, just that was really well received, and we've since followed them excessive information. I think it was happening about the time of our last RDC meeting. I wasn't sure I fully made you aware of it, but the addresses of 6415, 6313, and 6473 Lee Road are the 10 acres that sits immediately north of the school at the intersection of Lee Road, and is that 63rd?
63rd Street.
Third, on that corner, has just come up for sale. What's particularly interesting about that is that's the one piece of real estate in all the city that we could put enough water and sewer to support some residential development. It's zoned for fairly large size residential homes. It's not zoned right now for significant mixed use or high density housing. But that's also come under, it kind of leads to the next one there. If I haven't made you all aware of it, there's been a 2-year effort by the VA to locate a new veterans clinic, outpatient services clinic, like they've built in Terre Haute and Michigan City and various places around the state. Edinburgh, yep.
Right in next to the hospital on Cold Springs Road.
So this initiative is for real. There was an RFP that was due 2 weeks ago to the VA from developers for proposed sites and alternatives. I know 3 different ones that were submitted in the Lawrence area. So I'm just making you aware that that's something that may come in discussion for us more as we move forward with that. I'm going to skip to number 8, and then we're going to kind of turn over to Adam. Number 8, Corey and I spent approximately 2.5 hours, maybe 3, since we've all been together, and we virtually drove every area of the city a couple weeks ago. We identified a number of areas of blight that really need some attention. We're trying to place a focus with the administration on how we deal with that and put more pressure on those to be cleaned up, because some of them seem like they're constant every year battles with the same landowners. We identified some new areas that definitely need some help. We identified a few areas that are just categorically dangerous that we've got to figure out how to get down. Corey, would you like to say anything more about our discoveries there?
We're really looking at how we can become more proactive versus reactive. And so kind of trying to figure out how do we make that happen. I know some of the concerns that currently that DPW has is that budgeting and what can they do to get some of those things done. But we really have to work and figure that out because that's why they become these recurring problems. So we started some initial conversations and we'll continue that.
One of the things I'm pushing for is we have a tendency to be really nice and issue these things and tell them that they have 10 days to clean it up, and then we kind of forget about the 10 days, I think, and then nothing happens and they get a notice. I'm really pushing code enforcement to start levying some fines. I think we've really got to work to keep cleaning up this city. So.
How many properties, Dan, are we talking about? In the hundreds, the tens?
No, I would say if we're not exaggerating, and I went to prepare a list today, there's a top 10 list that's really bad.
And those are the ones that you're going to be working?
Those are the ones I really want to work on. But on the other hand, there's probably another 30 to 40 that have weeds and stuff that just don't get maintained like they should. That I think if we really levied a fine once or twice, it'd start to take care of that problem. But it's not hundreds. And the other good news is it's in pretty concentrated areas of the city. And the other thing I think will really help over time is as we start to change Pendleton Pike and push those medians up, I'm seeing enough private development interest, I think, over time that a lot of this is going to get replaced. But there are certain areas that, particularly when you get down to 46th Street where Dan Penn's made all the nice changes, there's that shopping mall there at 46th and Post, or that little gas station, that little mall, and you go around it and the weeds are as high as I am and stuff not picked up. And then right across the fence, you see where Dan's trying to enforce the changes he's made. It's got it pretty nice. So we just need to be sure we're doing our part, I think, to support all the other things that are going on.
Is that a list or a report that we would be privy to as well? I mean, is that something we can get a copy of?
I think that's something that Corey and I need to generate yet that we really haven't done. It's mostly in our heads, but it's certainly something that we could work on for you by the next meeting. So with that, if you have nothing else, anybody have anything relative to what I've spoken about, anything else that you want to bring up? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Adam to educate us.
Question on the, a couple things on that. Our hockey house, is that you said training facility? Is that an actual pad of ice, or is that a kind of essentially a workout, like acceleration?
I think it's both. But they're asking for 5 to 10 acres and build a facility on it. So I'm assuming that it's ice or some form of training. I don't know enough about hockey to really speak to it, and Michelle and I haven't talked about it in depth enough.
Okay. And then so you've got a huge facility in Fishers, another one that's going to be going up there in addition to the forum, or what was the forum? But
Michelle has actually this past Winterfest, she was involved and was doing free ice skating lessons on weekends to gauge interest in Lawrence and with ice hockey. So she does everything from going to schools and doing literally on their socks and skating to teach them the fundamentals and how to, use the sticks and hockey sticks and all that kind of stuff, to working with synthetic ice. And, I think that she even talks sometimes about how you can have some of those synthetic ice you can take some places. And my guess is with getting to this level, I would think she is looking at some regular ice because I know that was a dream of her. She does work closely with the NHL, and she was getting some funding for that from them for some equipment and those kinds of things that she could be taking out to the community to be able to continue to build interest in hockey.
it would be interesting. I had to say, I was a travel hockey and hockey in the area for over 20 years. And, Cathedral had one of the best hockey programs, in town for many, many years. They've now connected with Kiram. And the Lawrence Bearcats was a big hockey program that at one point was kind of all places, connected with Westfield. And, that's all changed. But at one point there was a significant amount of hockey in the area that unfortunately had kind of gone away. So it'd be nice to see that come back. In synthetic ice, Westfield had a synthetic ice pad for many, many years, so that's something that can work also.
Thank you. Adam?
Yeah, so the legislative session ended obviously a couple months ago, and so now we've prepared sort of a summary of the major legislative changes that impact specifically redevelopment commissions. I think at our last meeting, I went over a lot of the frequently asked questions and a lot of residential TIF specifics, or at least provided you guys with that handout. So the first couple things on here are changes to redevelopment commissions. That previous handout goes into a lot more detail about residential TIF, but the quick summary on that is it is much easier now to create allocations areas that capture TIF from single-family homes. One of the other things, I don't know the wisdom behind this. I'm sure the legislator had great intent. Starting like next year, whoever serves as president, the appointing person, if that was the mayor, that means the vice president will have to be somebody that was appointed by the city council. Or
Or vice versa.
Or yeah, or vice versa, so. I'm not sure what power they think the vice president has, but they thought that was important.
What do you think, Cheryl?
And
We're kind of ahead of them on this, aren't we?
one of the bigger and kind of surprising changes was now that, because always before TIF had to be for capital projects or capital improvements, and you couldn't use it for operating expenses or maintenance of projects. But now, TIF can be used for fire and or police capital improvements or their operating costs. So that's a change, and there's the flexibility to be able to do that. So I'm not, you guys might have heard, maybe I just hear it more because I do this for a living, but there's this annual spending plan that's required. That does not come in until 2025. So it is requirement by December 1, 2024. So we have another legislation opportunity to remove this before it becomes effective. You have to basically put together almost like a budget for the following year and then spend in accordance with that budget.
Imagine how difficult it's going to be to project in an RDC when people come to projects for you mid-year and you want to incentivize them, but you didn't have that in your budget because you didn't know they existed. To me, this is a really tough thing for an RDC.
Yeah, on a policy scale, way all the budgets work, the city levies a tax, collects it for all the operations, and they got to tell all the citizens what you're going to, use that money for, which makes sense because you are going to levy a tax and then you're going to spend it. In a redevelopment commission context, you don't levy any tax that you just get to collect as a matter of course. So theoretically, you only get to eat what you kill. So if you don't generate any TIF, you don't collect any TIF. It's just vastly different, and it was always designed to be flexible. So it was disappointing to see this added in. If it's not rescinded in next year's legislation, then we'll figure out a plan for how to handle that for 2025. But that is, if anybody had heard about it from others, I assume we're thinking that was now or was going to be in 2024. The annual April 15th report, that's always been something that's been due, and then it's filed with the mayor and the city council. And then if they asked you, we had to have somebody present that report to the council. Now, we no longer have, they don't have the option of waiving it. We basically, starting next year, somebody has to go and actually present it to the council. Last thing, which shouldn't be a big problem for here, this starting July 1, 2025, you have to have all meetings at least live streamed and then available to watch for 90 days. Some places that's going to be a nightmare, but shouldn't be a big burden here.
We already do it, so.
That's July 1, 2025 when that becomes live. Went through that pretty quickly. Any questions or?
Can I take you all the way back to the beginning?
Yeah.
Authority to create economic development target areas extended to counties.
Yes.
We as a city, are we missing an opportunity to partner with the county on projects?
No, because our domain is within the city limits. We establish our own EDAs.
But is there a way that we could benefit from partnering with the county on, no? Okay,
Right here.
thank you.
Yeah, this is something I provide to all cities, all clients. This is not specific just to Lawrence.
This is very helpful, thank you.
Adam, I had a quick question for you. Speaking about the annual spending plan, it mentions in the language here that it needs to be presented to both the town executive as well as the council group for either the county or the city. do you know, is that spending plan going to require approval from those bodies, or do they just need to be presented?
My understanding is it just needs to be presented.
Okay,
Yeah.
Advisory.
yeah,
And I think it'll also be submitted to DL, or,
DLGF for
DLGF.
record, yep, just like our budgets.
but it won't be procedural burden of normal budgets of all the meetings and all the present, will not be the case. Well, that'll be short-circuited, but, yeah, it's still a constricting issue. Seems unnecessary.
And the concern I have for it is, it's just like right now, we're salting money away for a big project. And you'll show, well, in the next year, we're still a year away, so we only need about a third of that, or 20% of it, but we know in 2 years, we're gonna eat 80% of it. Is there somebody gonna say, well, you're not spending that money now, and this next year, we can take that money away or something else? I'm not sure what the intent is yet, so we just have to see how it plays out. Anything else? Appreciate it. Corey, anything else for the group? As our chief of staff.
If you have nothing to do tonight, there's plenty going on in Lawrence. The farmer's market is tonight and goes to 7 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, you can come to our town hall. It is at Corin Manufactured Homes on the porch of their main building there by the cow. And
Give a 2 or 3 item summary of the agenda at the town hall tonight.
today, we're going to be talking about continuing the momentum. And so it's a big focus on a lot of the projects that are happening in Lawrence and how we are working to continue the great trend that has been going on with all the development, thanks to all of you and so many people working so hard to, Joe with his trails, and there's new things happening with another trail now, and piggybacking on that, and all those good things. So lots happening in Lawrence, and everything from, stormwater and road paving to amenities, and we're happy to share that with the community. And of course, they can all ask questions. We had a few that were submitted, but the focus continues to be on our streets with the questions that we're getting from the community. And so we really are looking at new ways to be able to address some of those things as well as we await funding either through ARP or as we do grants to get more money.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cory.
Thank you.
Mr. President, back to you, sir.
Any other business from the commissioners? Thoughts? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, and all those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, sir. Everything.